Hi everyone, it's me, Spring, the fiber enthusiast. Welcome to my channel. Today we're going to do a short tutorial, and if you follow along with me, you will end up with this small, like makeup remover size face cloth. It is a Tunisian crochet tutorial, and it's called the Ocean Stitch. So for today's tutorial, I'm using a 5mm hook that I made into a Tunisian hook myself, and some peaches and cream cotton. All right, so let's go ahead and get started, everybody. Okay, so for this particular pattern, it comes with multiples of 3 plus 1. So go ahead and chain 10 if you're following along with me. If you would like to make a bigger project, you are more than welcome to do so. But if you just want to test this out, and again, I haven't put any trim around it or anything. I just did the pattern for the sake of this tutorial. So I'm going to slip stitch onto my hook and chain 10. Once you have 10 chains, you're going to turn your work on its side, and we're going to work through the bumps on the back of those chains. You're going to insert your hook into the second bump, second stitch from your hook, yarn over and pull up a loop. Go ahead and do that all the way to the end. At the end, you will have 10 loops on your hook. So you will have the same amount of loops on your hook as your chain. Okay, so we have our forward pass of our foundation row, and 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10 loops are on the hook. Now let's go ahead and do our return pass of our foundation row. Yarn over and pull through 2 loops. So 1 and 2. Chain 2, 1, 2, yarn over and pull through 4 loops. 1, 2, 3, and 4. So we're creating these clusters. Let's do that again. Chain 1 and 2. Now yarn over and go through 4. Now when you do this, you're creating a chain right here. So that makes it 1, 2, 3 chains. Now let's go through those other 3 stitches. 1, 2, and 3. So now we're left with 3 loops on our hook. You're going to chain 2, 1, and 2, and yarn over and pull through all 3. Okay, so let's begin row 2. Rows 2 and 3 are your repeat rows for the remainder of this pattern. Remember, each Tunisian row is actually 2 rows. You have a forward pass and a reverse pass. So let's begin row 2's forward pass. You're going to chain 1. Ignoring this inverted V here, that is a half of a cluster. We're going to work into these 3 chains. Actually, the first chain down here at the bottom, and then the 3rd chain. So into the first chain, insert your hook, yarn over, and pull up a loop. Now we're going to work into the chain from our foundation row in between the half cluster and your first cluster. So insert your hook, yarn over, and pull up a loop through that chain. Now you're going to work into the 3rd chain. So the last chain before your cluster, insert your hook, yarn over, and pull up a loop. You now have 4 loops on your hook. We're going to skip this cluster and go into this first chain. Insert your hook, yarn over, and pull up a loop. Now work into the foundation chain below. Insert your hook, yarn over, and pull up a loop. Again, we're going to work into the 3rd chain, so the last chain before your cluster. Insert your hook, yarn over, and pull up a loop. We now have 7 loops on our hook. We're going to skip that next cluster and repeat what we just did. Insert into the first chain, yarn over, pull up a loop. Go to the foundation chain in that space. Insert your hook, yarn over, pull up a loop. And now the 3rd chain, you're going to insert your hook, yarn over, and pull up a loop. You now have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now for row 2 only, you will have 11 stitches. So now we're going to go into the side and do a standard Tunisian stitch at the edge, that edge stitch. And work through both of those loops. Yarn over and pull up a loop. So now you will have 11 loops on your hook. And if you step back and look at this, at the end of row 2, forward pass, you will have 1 stitch on this end, 1 stitch on that end, and 3 groups of 3 loops. All right, let's do the reverse pass for row 2. You're going to chain 2. So 1 and 2. Now you're going to yarn over and pull through 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Chain 1 and 2. Yarn over and go through 4. Chain 2, 1, 2. Yarn over and go through 4. You now have 2 loops on your hook. You're going to yarn over and pull through those 2 loops. You have now completed a full forward and a reverse pass of row 2. Let's begin row 3. Row 3's forward pass. So we have this full cluster at the end here, and then this side stitch. We're going to insert our hook in between this side stitch and this full cluster into the stitch from the previous row. And you might have to work your stitches around, insert your hook, yarn over, and pull up a loop. Now we're going to skip this cluster and we're going to work into these chains and the top of the cluster from row 2. So into that first chain, you're going to insert your hook, yarn over, and pull up a loop. Now you're going to reach down to the top of that cluster and insert your hook into that stitch, yarn over, and pull up a loop. Now you're going to go into the 3rd chain, insert your hook, yarn over, and pull up a loop. We'll repeat that again. Skip your next cluster, insert your hook into the first chain, yarn over, and pull up a loop. Insert your hook into row 2's cluster to the top of it, yarn over, and pull up a loop. Insert your hook into the last chain, yarn over, and pull up a loop. Now we're going to repeat what we did at this end over here. We're going to skip the last big cluster here. We're going to insert our hook into the stitch below, into that space. Yarn over and pull up a loop. And now we're going to locate our side stitch here. Insert your hook underneath of both of those vertical bars, yarn over and pull up a loop. So this is what you should have at the end of your forward pass for row 3. You should have 2 stitches on each end that are kind of grouped together, and then you will have 2 groups of 3 in the center. So that will be back to 10 stitches, 10 loops on your hook. So let's go ahead and complete row 3. For the return pass of row 3, you're going to yarn over and pull through 2 stitches. Now chain 1 and 2, yarn over and go through 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Chain 1, 2, yarn over and go through 1, 2, 3, 4. You have 3 loops left on your hook now. You're going to chain 1, 2, yarn over and pull through all 3. And that is your repeat rows for the entirety of this stitch pattern. We'll go through these one more time together. So we'll start back with row 2. You know you're at row 2 when you have a half of a shell over here, a space, and then a full shell. That is row 2. Chain 1. Ignore this half a cluster. Insert your hook into the first chain. Pull up a loop. Insert your hook into the top of the cluster below. Yarn over, pull up a loop. Insert your hook into the third chain. Yarn over and pull up a loop. Skip your next cluster and repeat. Insert your hook into the first chain, yarn over, pull up a loop. Insert your hook into the top of the cluster, yarn over, pull up a loop. Insert your hook into the third chain, yarn over, pull up a loop. Skip your next cluster, insert your hook into the first chain, yarn over, pull up a loop. Insert your hook into the cluster below, yarn over, pull up a loop. Insert your hook into the last chain, yarn over, pull up a loop. Now we need to finish off by turning our work sideways and catching those 2 vertical bars to do our Tunisian side stitch, edging stitch there. And at the end of row 2, you should have 11 stitches. So 3 clusters of 3 in the center and 2 single side stitches that stand alone on the ends. Let's go ahead and do row 2 back pass. Row 2 back pass, you are going to chain 2. 1, 2, yarn over and go through 4. Chain 2, 1, 2, yarn over and go through 4. Chain 2, 1 and 2, yarn over and go through 4. You have 2 loops left on your hook. Yarn over and go through 2. Okay, so now we're going to begin row 3 forward pass. So we're going to go between this end here and our full cluster. Insert your hook into the stitch below, yarn over, and pull up a loop. You're going to skip the cluster and insert your hook into the first chain, yarn over, and pull up a loop. Insert your hook into the top of the cluster from row 2, yarn over, and pull up a loop. Insert your hook into the third chain, yarn over, and pull up a loop. Skip your next cluster. Go into the first chain, insert your hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, go into the top of the cluster from row 2, insert your hook, yarn over, pull up a loop. Insert your hook into the third chain, yarn over, and pull up a loop. Now we're going to skip this last cluster and go into the stitch below, yarn over, and pull up a loop. And now we're going to catch the side stitch here under both vertical bars, yarn over, and pull up a loop. You should have 10 loops on your hook, 2 sets of 3, and then 2 sets of 2 on each end. Let's finish row 3. For our return pass, we're going to yarn over and go through 2 stitches. Chain 2, 1 and 2. Yarn over and go through 4 stitches. Chain 1, 2. Yarn over and go through 4. You now have 3 loops on your hook. Chain 2, 1, 2. Yarn over and go through all 3. So we're going to repeat rows 2 and 3 2 more times to make this size makeup square. Go ahead and complete that 2 more times, and I will show you how to bind off. Okay, so for our bind off, it's really simple. The only thing is you want to end on a row 2. Okay, so for the cast off, we are using these vertical stitches, all of the vertical stitches, nothing from our chains until we have reached the end, and then we pick up those 2 vertical bars on the side. So we need to chain 1, insert our hook underneath the first vertical bar, yarn over, pull up a loop, and slip. Go to our second vertical bar, insert our hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, and slip. Now we're going to go to the third vertical bar, insert our hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, and slip. Now we're going to skip the rest of those chains and go to our next cluster of 3 vertical bars here and do the same thing. Insert your hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, and slip. Continue working across. It's just a slip stitch bind off. So skip the rest of those chains, work into the next 3 vertical bars of the last cluster of the row. And now we're going to catch this end down here. So turn on its side, catch those 2 vertical bars, yarn over, pull up a loop, and slip, and then chain 1, cut off from your working yarn, pull through, and cinch it down. Now all that's left is to sew in your ends, or you could have stayed attached and created a single crochet border around it if you would like, or some other type of border. I'm choosing not to do so, and I will just sew in my ends at this point. So that is it for this tutorial. I hope that you have enjoyed it and learned a new stitch. It is called the ocean stitch. It's really, really cool looking. Okay, everybody, be blessed, be a blessing, and until next time, bye for now.